It is my pleasure to welcome to the podium Braden Crow, our Form 2 class speaker, who was chosen by his classmates to deliver this speech.
Thank you, Ms. Nixon, and thank you to everyone who is here. I'm not really used to speaking in front of this larger crowd. This is a bit more than I'm used to, but we're going to try to get through it together. So, hello, I'm Braden. I'm sure that a lot of you know me or know of me. You may have seen me in some productions, or you've at least heard my loud voice at some point, which is, in all honesty, rather close to knowing me. You can laugh, it's okay. I've had a lot of ideas for this speech that I'm giving to you now. It's something that I've wanted to do since I first saw Sean Kelly give his graduation speech when I was in the 6th grade myself. I watched Sean get up on this podium and I thought to myself, wow, there is no way I'm ever going to be able to do that. My point still stands. While writing this speech, or while trying to write the right speech, I spent a lot of time wondering about the best way in which I could represent what the middle school experience is really like. I really wanted to write something memorable, dramatic, profound, inspiring. Not that I could pull it off very well, but I felt like it at least deserved a try. Maybe I'd have some inspirational quote from a civil rights activist or something like that at the start of it, finish it off with a big picture, real-world connection, like I'm trying to boost my English grade, because you know that's the kind of essay that gets a good score. I wrote and erased and rewrote my speech. I must have gone through at least 20 different topics for it entirely. I always came up unhappy at the end of it, though. I'd start with something I really thought would stick every time I'd say to myself, this is the one, this is my speech. And by the end of it, I'd realize that there is no way anybody would willingly sit through it, myself included. I kept running into issues. Sometimes I felt like I was doing the middle school and my classmates an injustice more than anything. I was ready to just give up when I realized something. If your goal is to accurately encompass the whole of the middle school experience, as chaotic as it can be, you can't really expect to be able to tie it off with a neat bow. There's something so inherently real about these 3 years that you don't really get to see anywhere else in the development of a person. We start out in the 6th grade as proto-humans, as Mr. Jenkins likes to call them, more like little kids than anything else, but by the end of the 8th grade, and I may be a little biased here, we're ready to essentially be smaller, younger adults. Sure, high school has driving, but you know what middle school has? The addition of human cognition, of being self-aware and aware of others, of recognizing that the world is so much wider than any of us can really know at the wise ages of 11 to 14. Middle school takes you from only knowing yourself to realizing that you don't know yourself. You can't possibly know yourself. Not yet. A lot of people say that middle school is a time of major self-discovery. I'd have to disagree. The only thing I discovered about myself in middle school was that I have a lot left to find out. So the question remains, how do you take such a world-broadening experience and expect to tie it down to a few words ending with that big picture moment, when the big picture moment at the end of middle school is sometimes in life there will not be a nice, neat moment at the end of things? How do you expect to talk about the human experience when you have to put 3 years into 3 paragraphs? It's ludicrous to think that that's achievable, but obviously my notes are a lot longer, so I'm not going to end the speech there. In the vein of Mr. Johnston, I would like to tell you a story to get my message across. So sit back, relax, and travel with me to the mystical time of summer 2015. At a small restaurant in North Huntington, a young boy of no more than 11 years old sits at a booth. He's not very happy with his day-to-day experience. In fact, he's rather unhappy, and he's been that way since about around the time he started going to school. He isn't doing poorly, rather he's doing too well. The school doesn't really know what to do with him, and he doesn't really know what to do with himself. As a result, it's kind of a mutual disaster, and it's been this way as long as he can remember. Across from him at this restaurant sit his parents, one holding a black briefcase. The contents of that briefcase are about to change just about everything in his life. He's been accepted to a place called Shady Academy, which might as well have been Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry to him. And what's more, he'll actually be able to go there for the next school year, something which had been nothing more than a pipe dream for him and his parents but a few weeks earlier. I'm sure there are many similar stories involving the various young men and women in my grade. I'm almost certain of it. There are plenty of reactions, I'm sure, as well. Joy for the beginning of a new adventure, anxiety for the fear of the unknown, surprise at the news, sadness for leaving their friends. Pretty soon it starts to look like the characters from the Pixar movie Inside Out. The boy, in this case, begins to cry. Yes, he's been unhappy in school, more than unhappy for all of his life, but he'd much rather be unhappy in the zoo than happy in the jungle, if you'll indulge the metaphor. And that's where middle school comes in. We all have some of that reaction in us, I think, to prefer comfort to the unknown, no matter how great the reward is to the risk that we're taking. Middle school likes to remind people that you don't always get that choice in life, and that that isn't always a bad thing. He cried tears of sadness and even some fear when his parents opened that briefcase and gave him the news, perhaps unknowingly making the best decision of his life. Right about now, he's fighting back tears up on this stage too. Not just because he's sad to be leaving his friends of 3 years, though this time he's only leaving for 3 months, but because he's remembering all of the amazing memories and experiences that they've given to him. What was waiting for that boy when he got to the middle school, you might ask? There was stress at times and fears he predicted, mostly before physics tests. But far scarier than the prospect of going to the school was now the prospect of leaving it. He found life experiences of every kind, a view of humanity far wider than he would have gotten just in his town. He met some of the greatest people on the planet, friends and parents and teachers alike, and he got to know them better than he really knew himself at the beginning of 6th grade. And certainly by the end of 8th grade, he knew himself a lot better too. I don't believe you learn who you are in middle school, but I think you do learn who you can be. Perhaps most importantly, the boy definitely learned how to talk to girls better. There were some rocks along the road to this moment for all of us, trials and tribulations in our path, but life is seemingly always under construction, much like Fox Chapel Road. Anyways, the proverb says that when life gives you lemons, you should make lemonade, but that doesn't always apply. Sometimes you already have lemons, and life begins to pelt oranges at you instead. What am I supposed to do with these, you ask? I'm trying to pick lemons here, and it's overwhelming and confusing and frightening, and you don't want to leave your life of lemon picking, but at the same time, you know life is right. Orange juice is just so much better than lemonade. And that's kind of what these few years have been like, I think, for all of us. Middle school is the kid who pushes you into the pool while you still have your school clothes on. Maybe you're a little freaked out at first, but that experience was certainly something to remember, wasn't it? And I found myself trying to write something that would somehow take 3 years of orange juice and being pushed into pools and turn it into some message about human nature or something, anything noteworthy, but you can't always do that. Life takes that essay you're trying to write and rips it up into pieces at the beginning of 6th grade. Middle school laughs at you at first, but it's helping you pick those pieces up, too. And when you finally tape that essay back together by the end of the 8th grade, it says a lot more about you than you thought. Also, it has better grammar. Thank you to Mrs. McCrae. I keep looking for that neat bow I mentioned to wrap this all up, but I already said it's not possible, didn't I? So instead of being all sentimental and emotional after I finish saying this and we go through the rest of the ceremony, instead of all the tears and the hugs after graduation, why don't we just do it now? I would like to recognize some people. Thank you to the parents for spending your time and effort to make these kids I'm standing in front of, my classmates especially, amazing friends and amazing people. There's no group that I would rather represent. Thank you to the teachers for making the middle school experience so much more than a simple 2 + 2, although there was a fair amount of math involved along the way. Thank you to everyone who has helped us turn our lemons into oranges. Thank you specifically to the 80-something high schoolers now with whom I'm in the same grade. You make this school feel like home to me, and I will never be able to thank you enough for that. We all go through a lot of things in middle school, I'm sure you're all aware. Here's the dramatic part, by the way. There's friendships, there's some of those same friendships drifting apart over the course of these 3 years. There's others that hopefully never will. There's romance, love even, and there's heartbreak. There's times when you'd rather be anywhere else in the world than whatever class you're in 6th period on the Friday before winter break. I'm sure you all know what I'm getting at here. And there's times when you wish you had more time to spend with your friends, the people who make your life what it is. A very close friend of mine asked me how many days there were until the end of school, until today, a few months ago. There were around 100, I told her. 100, she shouted. That's insane. That's no time at all. It's not enough. It's plenty of time, I insisted, maybe even too much time for my liking. She didn't believe me, and she was right not to. I wish we had more time. I wish I had more time with all of you. It's been 100 days since she asked me that, and it's been a little bit over 1,000 days since the first day of 6th grade for my class. We walk into the middle school for the first time with boundless fear, but with boundless optimism, too. We walk out of this graduation with that same energy for the life we have ahead of us. Middle school is an incredible journey through your thoughts and your feelings and your identity as a person, and you get to share that experience with everyone you meet here as well. We're all in the same boat, no matter who you are or where you're from. But far more important than where we've been, perhaps, is where we're heading next. I hope to see you all next year at the senior school. To those of you who won't be returning, I hope to see you on the world's most successful people list someday. Until that time, I hope the road of life takes you all somewhere spectacular, and I hope the orange juice you make along the way tastes delicious. Thank you.